Hi guys, and welcome to a new episode of The Collector. And hey, thanks for watching. Today we will be looking at 10 Super Nintendo games that you do not want to miss, sort of like a few hidden gems. This is not a top 10, so I am not rating the games, and as such they will be in no particular order. And these are not the best of the best, they are just some games that I enjoyed in my childhood and want to share them with you. Oh, and also I did not have these games when I was a kid, and I do not have them all even now, even though I wish I would. And also the way I played these games in my childhood was when I first got my hand on my first PC, which was way back in 2001. I remember it was an Intel Pentium 2, which was not a powerful computer even by that standards, but had enough strength to run emulators. So I got myself some NES, SNES and Sega emulators, and then I can say my childhood finally started. So let's just jump right into it, and the first game is Aladdin, and I swear I played this game on the NES also, and I actually think it was ported to the NES, but it might have been just a bootleg port. Back in Romania we did not have the original NES and SNES, but we did have a lot of Chinese bootleg consoles. I played and beat this game in my childhood, and I know it has many great stages that will make you enjoy it a lot. You play as Aladdin and you have to go through a lot of trouble to save the Princess Yasmin from the terrible wizard Jafar. I really like how the monkey is following you around, and it gives a comic aspect to the game. It's just that sometimes he jumps off and I can't seem to find him till the end of the stage. Such a willy head. This game is full of ingenious platforming, and sometimes it actually gets quite difficult. The stages are split into 4 smaller stages which end with a boss fight that can be quite tough sometimes, but if you know the trick it can be quite easy. Aladdin is one of those games that you do not want to miss on the Super Nintendo. Joe and Mac 2 Lost in the Tropics is one of those games that you could lose yourself into, as it is such a pleasure to the eyes. The way it's animated and the atmosphere it creates is great. The game is fantastic, and I remember when me and my brother were trying to play the game multiplayer and we were trying to beat it. That's easier said than done, as the game is simpler when played as 2-player most of the times, but sometimes it's quite a chore. For example, this rock cart stage where if you get touched, you get sent all the way back to the beginning of the stage. The story is simple here. A Neanderthal steals the crown of the kingdom, and now it's up to you to travel the land and get 7 gems to manage to create a bridge to the Forbidden Island to get the crown back. You play as Joe or Mac, and you are the caveman ninja. So this is caveman versus Neanderthals. Joe and Mac 2 Lost in the Tropics is one of those games that you don't want to miss on the Super Nintendo. And Gradius is one of those games that many prefer over R-Type. And to me it's exactly that. Now that is not to say that R-Type is a bad game. It's in fact a great game loved by many. But I always found myself more attracted to Gradius. You can find these games on multiple consoles like the NES and Game Boy, but with different names depending on the region you are from. The first time I was introduced to these games was back on the NES with Life Force. Yes, that was the name of the Gradius games given to the European version of the NES. I was hooked on that game as it was amazing. Later on the SNES we have Gradius 3, and this game is just great. I find myself loving the power-up system and the fact that at the beginning you are allowed to choose the way your power-ups order will be, but also what type of power-ups you might like. There is also an edit button where if you do not like their prepared ones, you can make your own. This brings some strategy to the game and it makes it so much better. And trust me, you will need strategy as the game is freaking hard. As you are playing the game, you get the power-up stars and you are left to choose how to spend them. I suggest you spend the first one on speed up, as the ship is pretty slow otherwise, and Gradius is simply one of those games that you do not want to miss on the SNES. And this next game is amazing through its simplicity. It's a simple puzzle game, but at the same time the game is not simple. You play as two small dinosaurs that are located at the bottom of the screen, and the objective of the game is to match the color to have the balls disappear. This game is great, but where it shines is by playing it in 2 players. You can play against the computer, but it is just too damn good and it will kick your ass. But if you have a friend, then the game is amazing and it gets really competitive. I have a friend back home that every time I go and visit, we play this game and it always starts friendly but ends up being quite competitive. And someone always has to say, let's just go for another round. Bust a Move is one of those games on the Super Nintendo that you do not want to miss. Castlevania Dracula X is an indirect port of the famous Castlevania Rondo of Blood for the PC Engine. On the SNES we got Dracula X, but this does not mean it's a bad game. Why do I say it's an indirect port? This game was originally released on the PC Engine and was an exclusive to Japan. When they decided to bring it here, they decided to port it to the SNES, but there were some complications, so they made a different game. The game does not follow the same storyline and it's considered to take place in a different timeline. Now the game has different stages and it plays differently also, and that is great, as who wants the same game over and over? Different is better. Although the Castlevania game that is known on the SNES is actually Castlevania 4, that is only because you can whip in 8 different directions and here you have only one direction. That is the only reason that that game is better. I am joking of course, but this game will not let you down and it is one of those games that you do not want to miss on the Super Nintendo. If you want to play something genius and to lose yourself into it, then E.V.O. Search for Eden is for you. In this game, the sun is the almighty god who birthed the 9 planets and named the third one Gaia, aka the Earth. It told the planet that every billion years it will evolve and the time has come now to evolve again by having creatures. Now you take the role of a small fish-type creature that has to eat everything in its path to make himself stronger and evolve enough to join the god Gaia in Eden. This game is quite tranquil and the music gives a zen aspect to the game. It will make you lose hours upon hours trying to evolve in all sorts of manners. Depending on what type of the body you evolve, your stats will change, like attack, defense, but also speed. This game has a special place in my heart because it was one of my childhood's friends' favorite. Sadly, he is no longer among us, but while playing this game for this review, I got reminded of this aspect. And as such, I want to dedicate this episode to him and to our childhood friendship. But with that being said, this is one of those games that you do not want to miss on the Super Nintendo. And this next game I did not play in my childhood, and it's called Metal Warriors. And this game takes place in the future where the planet is facing a great threat and it's being attacked by the alien force, the Axis, who wants to conquer our planet, but Earth's allied forces got together and they used all the technology they possess to create an unbeatable machine called the Metal Warriors. You are now one of those robot pilots and you have to complete missions for the army. This game is quite interesting, and at first it gives a sense of a Metroidvania style because the stages are quite big and wide, but the game gives you clear missions that you need to complete, so it's not that. As weapon, you have an unlimited projectile and a cool-ass sword that looks great, but it's not that useful. Now, if you get to small spaces that the robot can't fit through, you can get out of the pilot and explore, but be careful. The pilot is very weak, so only a few hits and you're dead. I like this game, and even though I do not have childhood nostalgia for it, it is one of those games that you do not want to miss on the Super Nintendo. And this is also a new one. I kind of vaguely remember playing it in my childhood, but I certainly did not beat it. The atmosphere and music here will send you to ancient Japan, and who doesn't want to go there? You can play single player or double, and you play as Goemon, which in Japan is a great series of games spamming multiple entries. But in the West it was brought as the Legend of the Mystical Ninja, and we didn't get that many ports. The game starts when you hear a rumor that a ghost in a temple has started doing bad things, so it's up to you to go and set it straight. The game starts like a side view beat 'em up, and you can move around in all directions beating enemies and collecting as much money as you can, with which you can buy sub-weapons and armor. After you progress a bit and move to the next screen, the game starts going weird, and instead of real people, you start fighting ghosts. You progress some more and then the game becomes a side scroller, and I love this type of games that don't let themselves be constrained by a single style of gameplay. For a weapon, you have this cane that you can upgrade with these cats, and it becomes a metal cane and then a yo-yo. And trust me, you want the yo-yo as soon as possible. If you get hit once, the weapon upgrade goes down. You can use sub-weapons, but you can also use the coins you get as shurikens, so get as many of them as you can. This game is difficult, but it is a pleasure, so with that in mind, I just want to say that this is one of those games that you do not want to miss on the Super Nintendo. And the next one is called Lost Vikings, and this game will make you think a bit and it will challenge your wits. The game takes place in the Viking era, and it begins with a story/tutorial that I recommend you watch, as you do need to know what every character's traits are. You play with 3 Vikings and each one has a different ability. The first one can jump and run into obstacles to destroy them. The second one has a shield that he can block projectiles with, but can also use as a glider to glide from heights. And the third one is the warrior that has a sword and a bow. All is good and well until an alien spaceship comes and kidnaps them all. Now when the game starts, you are on the ship and you are trying to escape. And you have to use all of them to escape by changing among them to solve the appropriate puzzles. You have to reach the exit with all of them, and that's how you progress to the next level. This game is one of those games that I played as a child but did not blow me away, so I did not stay with it too long. I think that as an adult I can appreciate it more, so it's one of those games that you do not want to miss on the SNES. And Punch-Out on the NES is a masterpiece, but Super Punch-Out and the SNES makes everything better in my opinion. In the first place, we have the transparency effect here that the NES could not handle, and even though Little Mag is still small in comparison to the opponents, the difference this time is not that big. The game is great and the opponents are quirky and funny. We have 3 buttons this time: left punch, right punch and the knockout punch. If you hit the punch buttons with no inputs from the directional pad, then the hits will go to the body. If you press up on the directional pad, the hits will go to the face. We combine these hits to fill the super meter on the bottom of the screen, which lets us throw a knockout punch at the body or face, or sometimes a fast series of hits that will put the opponent down. If you do not move, then Little Mac automatically blocks hits to the body, and if you press up, then he blocks them to the face. Press left or right to dodge in those directions, and press down to dodge high hits. You have to memorize the patterns of these opponents and then use all your skill to win. This game is great, so I have to say that this is one of those games that you do not want to miss on the Super Nintendo.
2, 3, 4, fight!
Alright guys, so those are 10 games you do not want to miss on the SNES. 10 hidden gems if you like that term. I know some people do not like it, but I'm quite fond of it. Please comment and tell me what you thought about this video and tell me which other games you would put on this list. I might end up making a sequel. Thank you so much for watching this video, and if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe or at least tell a friend about it.